Michael, I'm a real estate investor, and I'm also big on diversification of a portfolio.
Course.
I think I'd like to have something other than real estate, and wine is something that I've talked with several people that they not only have a passion for, but they made some really good money doing it. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, pleasure to be
Can
here.
you give us like a 15-second background of being a sommelier and what you're doing now, actually?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in wine for over 10 years. I got my sommelier when I was 21 from the Court of Master Sommeliers.
Mhm.
Youngest in Vancouver at the time, which was very exciting for me.
Yeah.
I started working as a sommelier. For those that don't know, it's a certification, but also a position at restaurants.
Yeah.
And I bought for a fine dining restaurant out here in Vancouver for a couple of years. A great opportunity as it allowed me to purchase wines that I wouldn't be able to purchase for my home cellar.
Sure.
And I recently got into real estate because I really enjoy business in general and working with other businesses. So I specifically do industrial real estate in
Okay.
Burnaby, if you know Vancouver. And I'm excited to kind of merge the world of working with people on a face-to-face level, like I did at the restaurant, but also my passion for business as well. So,
Well, good. Well, I know Canada. I believe you and I spoke before. You know Chad Griffiths, and for those
yeah.
of you that are out there want to know about industrial, he gives a great podcast. So,
Oh man, that's the guy. That's the guy.
yeah,
He's my mentor, my virtual mentor for now.
yeah. I always want to give him a shout out because he puts great content out on industrial investing. His depth of knowledge too. It's
Yeah.
really amazing. All right, back to wine, and instead of praising Chad so much, hopefully Chad watches it. Uh,
Yeah.
if I'm a novice. I want to figure out how to be. Where do I start investing in wine? What are my first steps?
Well, if you're a novice, I would say probably the reason why you're even thinking about wine is because you're interested in it, at least to the slightest. So start with what got you into it, what made you interested in wine, but consider taking a very introductory level tasting course, I would say, just to kind of give you an idea of what you're looking for in a good wine. Typically in North America, the average is WSET, Wine and Spirits Education Trust, and they offer entry level courses that will kind of get you up to speed with the standard tasting approach. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it gives you an idea of what to expect from a quality wine versus a table wine. And as you want to grow wine as an investment, understanding what makes a good wine will help make a good investment as well.
Okay.
But start with what excites you about it, because that's what's going to keep you going.
Yeah.
So pick a type of wine. You know, a lot of people start with the grape. I would say, you know, you're from California,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of people like the cabs down there, the Napa cabs. I'm sure almost everyone in the world has heard of, you know, how good Napa cab is. So if that's your thing, pick your favorite one, pick the producer that you like, and go, okay, so what's similar to this? What else is kind of in that realm, and explore from there. And then maybe pick another grape and go from there. Wine, when you talk to wine professionals, everyone always talks about this word, this terroir. And terroir translates directly into a sense of place. And really, at the end of the day, we're farming grapes.
Right.
And we're turning it into juice. So a lot of what makes a good wine is what comes down to good grapes. So pick a grape you're excited about, pick a region you're excited about, and dip into who the good producers are, and maybe sign up for their wine club, you know, and
Okay.
build that relationship. And once you're sick of cab, maybe you want to move on to Pinot Noir, you know, start that process again.
Sure.
And eventually you'll have built a list of producers that you've come to love and trust, and you know that make good quality wine, and your knowledge will grow from there. But like anything, you know, don't try and tackle the whole wine world at once. You're never going to get anywhere like that. Start with one thing, keep it simple, and expand slowly but surely.
Yeah. Learn the one, like in real estate. Learn one asset class, and then you can spread out after you've got that one mastered. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Go to
Yeah.
the asset class and then go to the
Yeah.
region and
Yeah.
grow from there.
Yeah. Now I was thinking of so many questions. One thing, these grapes. So if I get grapes, don't a lot of people that grow the grapes then sell them off to other wine companies?
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you can trace
absolutely.
those wine companies through the vineyard, right? Or can
Yep.
you? Oh, you can.
In
Okay.
in fact, most first growth champagnes
Mhm.
don't actually grow their grapes. They have long-term contracts with grape growers. So everyone knows Dom Perignon. Dom
Yep.
Perignon doesn't grow their own grapes. They buy it from farmers in Champagne.
Right.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, obviously, we're talking Dom Perignon, it's a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
just the way it goes. And if you're really savvy with your wine, you'll keep track of a vineyard and you'll go, okay, who's got the contract for the grapes this year?
Hmm.
And so that's honestly some very high level stuff.
Yeah, that's
It takes a
probably
while
we're
to,
probably not there yet. I kind of right now I want to focus on newer people and helping them get, the first few in. I'll have to have you back on. We'll dig down a little deeper
yeah,
for the
we'll do
more
episode two.
sophisticated investors. But am I better off as a newer investor? I mean, I'm sure you want to set a budget up, right? I want to put X
Yep.
amount of money into this. Am I better off going and buying an older wine or a newer wine? Or what is your suggestion there?
That's a great question. I would say, as a learning experience, try buying some older wine, but don't go buy it by the case.
Oh,
Understand? I would so in the wine world, there's two types of tastings. There's horizontal tastings and there's vertical tastings. Vertical meaning the vintage, horizontal meaning you'll go to a winery and you'll taste all the different vineyards on the same vintage.
okay.
So if you really want to learn about, say, we've followed my advice so far and we've picked a grape and we've picked a producer and we want to learn more about that producer and what they've done over the years, buy 4 bottles of wine, all different vintages, and get a group of people together and taste them in order. And you'll see the difference that time has on a wine. But what we'll come to understand is wine is an investment, just like any other investment. The earlier you get in, the more the investment will appreciate.
Yeah.
So when you're building your cellar, I recommend buying wines on release because the intent is to hold them. But if you want to learn and understand what it means, how the wine changes with time, and you're just getting into wine, buy a current release and see if you can get your hands on wine that's 10 years old, but the same bottle. Don't not a different vineyard, not a different tier, but get the exact same wine, 10 years difference, compare them side by side, and it'll give you an idea of the age, how wine ages, and you can see how wine can appreciate in value. Little bit of a tangent, but definitely correlated,
Mhm.
is I like to see wine's lifespan as a parabola. So
Okay.
it starts young, we're at the very beginning, and as it grows to the top, we're reaching the height of its complexity and quality. And as it gets older, it loses those qualities. And so you want to try and drink the wine, a lot of professionals call it the drinking window, at
Mhm.
the top of the parabola when it's tasting the most complex, but it's still alive and it still has the quality of the body, the acid, the tannins that hasn't faded away yet.
Mhm.
So when you're looking to resell your wine, you want to resell it when it's in its drinking window. You want to buy it when it's young, and you hold on to it too long, they'll start to depreciate.
Right.
Obviously, there's rare cases with extremely rare bottles that are literally vinegar but are being sold as prestigious objects. Um, for the more savvy investor, everyone's heard of Lafite 82, maybe the world's most renowned vintage. That's going to be valuable for a long time, even long after it's not able to be drunk.
Yeah.
But if you're just getting started, just explore and go with what you're interested in. But if you're investing, try to get a case of released wine and hold on to it for as long as you can without drinking
How,
it.
how do I know where that window is?
Now
I haven't
that
figured that one out.
tricky question,
Yeah,
but
I figured it
not
was gonna
not
be.
it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Now a lot of pros will assign a drinking window. So I highly recommend picking a reviewer, a critic that you can relate to, and a lot of them are region specific. But you've probably heard of Robert Parker, who's
Yeah.
the creator of the Wine Advocate. I personally like Parker because he's very consistent with his points assignments, and he doesn't, give out 95s willy-nilly. But going from critic to critic, you'll see there's a variance in the points they assign.
Right.
Now, Robert Parker will often tell you how long the wine will be drinkable for. But long story short, it's the quality of the wine, the quality of the vintage, how much fruit potency the wine carries with it. And it all translates to what happened in the vineyard. So if there was a good year, that wine will drink longer than on a bad year, if we're just looking at one producer too.
Sure.
So that's, when I hope we'll talk about it, touch on it later, but why vintage is so important and what that window is. Now, your $10 to $15 wine is meant to be drunk immediately.
Right.
That's table wine. But as soon as you kind of break into that 15, 20, 25 plus, those wines can live quite some time. There's wines that can live 10 plus years. They'll drink better than 2 for the most part. And a lot of the times, if you're looking just for personal enjoyment, that I would say $25 to $50 range, you can age those wines for the most part 10 to 20 years, and you'll see a significant increase in quality, but you're not investing in your $100 a bottle, $200 a bottle wines that can live for 20 to 40 years plus.
I don't think it'd make it that long at my house.
Exactly. Well, that's the challenge with investing,
yeah.
right?
And you've got that good wine, and you have some cheap wine one night. Next thing you're sitting there going, "Oh yeah, I've got that good stuff in the cabinet."
As we like to say, you got to have your daily driver.
Yeah.
The one that's not tempting you in the cellar there.
Yeah. So. Keep you from going down. Is there a type of wine that you've seen the best results for as far as the investment as an investment?
Absolutely. So as with anything, rarity and prestige carries its weight as an investment. So when you are looking to build a cellar in a diversified cellar at that, is you want to look at your producer and you want to say, okay, so how much clout does this producer have? Is this someone that's been making wine for the last 30 years, achieving high renown with critics? Do they year over year improve their quality of their wine, or are they making more wine at a higher volume but lower quality over time? So typically the houses that want to maintain their prestigious branding, almost think of it as like in fashion, you have your Gucci and your Louis Vuitton, but you can also have very good product that is made from the finest leather, but it doesn't have that badge on there.
Right.
That weight carries a lot with investors. That wine becomes rare. Even on release, it's rare. Sometimes, it's like Ferrari. You can't buy the newest Ferrari without having 10 other Ferraris. You're not going to get the new release. Right. Those wines are tricky, but they're reliable. They're going to maintain its value. They're kind of the Rolex of wines. But if you want to, be the guy that's ahead of the curve, pay attention to the amount of wine the producer is making, because more wine is harder to make more quality wine, and you're losing money too. It's a conscious decision to lose money to maintain quality, to produce less wine, sure, but a more quality wine. So the habits are either going to be driven by quality or by profit. So all the wineries that are driven by quality, that wine will stand the test of time. And typically, as they grow, they'll get better reviews. Now, it's, I would love to give you a specific list of, okay, here's the producers.
Yeah, here's the wines. Yeah.
But there's too many out there. And like I said, pick your favorite, pick your region. Say you like Brunellos, yeah, figure out all the cool Brunellos. There's a lot out there, but it's way less than say, oh, I want to look at all the Cabernets in the world, So pick your top 5 houses, see what's the best price per value, and then get your entry point there and start with that. So kind of a roundabout way of answering that question, but
A
I
friend
hope
of
that,
mine made a killing in Bordeaux over the last several years.
yeah.
He bought right and is just sitting at his house, and they've shot way up. And so he's done very, very well with it. And that's why I thought this video was so important is, real estate is, this is something you get in for a little bit cheaper and have a little bit of fun with, and you can build a really nice seller. So,
Yeah. Oh, and if you need to impress a client,
yeah, it's a great way.
not a bad way to do it.
The
The Bordeaux is an interesting one. There's 2009, 2010 is an interesting little case study. So 2009 regarded as one of the best vintages up until that point ever.
Okay.
Rivaling 82, 2001, 2005.
Yeah.
And then 2010 rolls around and all the producers are claiming this vintage is even better. But everyone went on a big buying spree 2009 and they said, look, they just want to sell more wine. There's no way 2010 is better. But in reality, it was. The tannins were firmer, the wines are longer lived. And so if you were buying 2010s in and around 2010, you are a happy man or woman, because they were going for a good price.
I don't know what year it was, but man, it was like silk. I loved it.
Yeah, well, that's the original best wine in the world, right? Is all the top houses from Bordeaux. And that's an interesting story with Napa too, because they took the crown for a little while, and recently it went back over to Bordeaux. So
yeah. There's something that, do you buy most of your wines locally, or do you have them shipped in?
Again, great question. Ideally, I would like to buy my wine where it's the best possible price. Here in Canada, we have terrible taxes, specifically in BC. So most investors buy their wine from Alberta.
Okay. So know your tax situation.
Yeah, know your taxes. But I would say in the absolute ideal circumstance, depending on where you reside, importing license could be a somewhat of a low cost and how deep into it you are.
Okay.
If you can get direct from the winery, that's going to be your best. Your second best is going to be getting it from your local distributor that represents that winery.
Building a relationship with a distributor and, getting somebody that, getting, because I can imagine it's got to be hard to go find these deals more locally. I mean, I'm sure people are coming in, but I mean, how do you do it? How do you go out and find the best wines? Is just you're talking to people constantly, or do you just have inside connections? How are you finding this wine?
Well, as a buyer, when I was working as a sommelier, they come to me.
Yeah.
So I was blessed with my daily routine. It's right around, when the restaurant calmed down a little bit, I would taste 10 to 40 wines a day with 1 to 4 different reps. And whenever a new wine came in that they thought it would suit me, they would talk to me. But as the perspective as someone who's getting into this and wants to make those connections, find out the wine, the producer, and then try and figure out who represents that producer in your region and call up the rep and say, hey, look, I'm a private collector. I want a case of X. Can you do this for me? And they're most likely going to be big smile on their face and say, yes, I can't sell it to you directly, depending on what it is, but I'll bring it into a store for you. And typically you'll get a much better rate than buying from the store directly. And they'll communicate with the store owner, letting them know that, hey, look, this guy's going to pick up a case of wine. Here's, a couple points to you, but that's without importing directly, that's the best approach, 100%. The problem is not every wine is imported to every region. And again, relating to taxes and where I live, British Columbia in Canada, a lot of people actively choose not to import the wine here because it's sold for an outrageous price. So those wines are harder to get for sure. And it just kind of takes patience and determination to reach out to the right people. And sometimes you are going to have to pay taxes on it, which is unfortunate. But
be a lot of due diligence. You're going to have to figure out the best way to get your hands on it. Now you can get it because I can imagine shipping is going to be fairly expensive too.
Yeah, it can be, and a lot of risk involved with shipping. If you're shipping a case of wine at $500 a bottle, that's a
Sure
huge
that.
risk you're taking. Yeah, insure it, most
Yeah.
definitely. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's I completely lost my train of thought because I had so many questions for you.
Yeah, no, it's
Uh,
okay. There's a lot to talk about. We could be
yeah,
here all week. So,
well, I think I'll go with the main one that hit me was storage. How do I store it? I mean, do you use it at home or do you use a facility?
So to preface this, this is where your risk is coming from.
Right.
From an investment standpoint, you've probably heard a horror story. I feel like we all have of, oh, my basement flooded. It was full of wine. It was a hot summer and my wine cellar cooling unit, it plunked out and all the wine got cooked. So when your whole portfolio of wine is at risk, depending on how you store it. So the safest way would be a third party, of course. Also insurance wise, hopefully they have their own insurance policy to go with that. But if you're doing at home, do your due diligence on how your cellar is set up. Consider having a backup generator. Some people's cellars are $100,000 plus. Definitely worth the cost if you're doing that.
You better be a good investor.
Yeah, seriously. But that's your biggest risk, right? So just make sure that I've bought kind of cheap wine fridges before, and
sure,
they don't last long. If you're an intro investor and you're like, oh, what do I do with my wine? And you don't want to build out a whole room to make a wine cellar. And honestly, some of the wine fridges are okay, but they aren't really a permanent solution. Just find the coldest room in your house, try and get it kind of below ground level, no light, start with that. There's lots of good articles on storing your wine, but that is going to be your biggest risk is, what I would like the viewers to get from this is be very cautious with that. It's easy to buy lots of nice wine and put it in the room with the one cooling unit, but as soon as that goes out on a hot summer's day, it's a nightmare. So be careful with that.
And you're playing with the insurance paperwork. Well, Michael, this is I learned a lot. I still have a lot more questions, but I think what we're going to do, because we're at 23 minutes almost already. I want to have you come back and let's talk about being a more sophisticated investor. So let's do this again in a couple of weeks, really geared towards a more sophisticated investor. And thank you for doing this today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You bet. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with real estate real quick. Let's let everybody hear what you're doing in real estate. I know you're doing industrial.
So brand new broker, trying to get my name out there. I work with a great group up here in Canada called CDN Global. Used to be part of Devoncore, one of the oldest brokerages in Canada, but recently split off to become a more full service brokerage. We specialize in tenant rep, but we have offices across Canada and we love to collaborate. Currently working with people down in Washington right now. So if you have any deals you want to get done in Canada, don't be shy to reach out to myself or one of the fellow brokers here at CDN. We're privately owned too, so we're a little more flexible when it comes to moving quickly and making decisions. So yeah, please, I would love to hear from anyone. If you want to chat wine, even better. So
yep, I'm going to put your contact information down below so they can reach out to you about real estate or wine. And
absolutely,
so it'll be hopefully they will reach out to you. And for those of you watching, thank you for watching today. I hope you learned a lot. Again, we're going to have Michael back on to really take it to the next level. Make sure you give us a like today and subscribe so you don't miss out.
Cheers. Thanks again.